Welcome to the Indian Newslink podcast. Good morning, Kamil. Thanks for inviting me to your office today.
Good morning, Daryll. Really lovely seeing you.
Yeah. How have you been?
Very good, very good.
Yes. And what did you want to talk about today?
Well, today we could. There has been this issue of large groups of individuals being exploited.
Yes.
Through the accredited, through the accredited employer work visa. So I thought that would be a topic that people may be interested in.
Yes, that would be great. Can you just explain to our listeners why this is going wrong in a very easy way for them to understand?
Well, the crux of it is that there's a new policy that was developed to combat the student exploitation that had taken place prior to 2000. It started in 2009-10, and then it went on till about 2018-19. And so when COVID came, there was a lot of cleanup, and it basically was almost eradicated. And there were some prosecutions that had taken place. So this particular policy was brought in by National Party. And they had developed this as a wonderful system that would ensure that the responsibility was on the employer. And they were going to be vetted, monitored, and they had a lot of responsibilities. And so that was the intention of the policy. Yes. And so the policy went through the normal way a policy is developed. It went through scrutiny. There was community liaison and consultation. A wide consultation happened, and they developed this particular policy. So it came into force about a year ago. And the intention was that it would be a protective kind of policy. However, the problem was in how it was implemented. So the policy itself is not problematic. It's the implementation of the policy that is really problematic. So the system that Immigration New Zealand developed and the way they processed the application was a very high trust system. Now, I don't know if a person understands what that actually means. So if I can explain, it was a questionnaire, and are you going to do this, do this, do this? And it's a tick box exercise. Yes. And once you say yes, accreditation is granted. I mean, I'm making it very simplistic, but because there are a couple of types of accreditation. But generally speaking, that was the way it was processed. And then once that's done, so what happened was a lot of people understood the opportunity that this gave them, the simplistic system.
Yes.
So those that understood that you could actually job sell easily. So they got on the plane, off they went to whichever country. Now, the difficulty is understanding who the culprit is. Is it the recruiter?
Yes.
Or is it the employer? Because there is the possibility that the employer had no idea what the recruiter was doing.
Yes.
And therefore, the recruiter was winning on the side, taking money off people. And the employer had no idea this was being done. Or the employer was complicit in it. So it's really unclear exactly what's gone on. But the end result is you have people that have been deceived and are in New Zealand now for some of them, they don't even have a job, which they've paid for. Or if they have a job, they're actually not being paid what they should be paid.
Yep. So we've seen recently in the last week or so, a lot of people who just living in these really horrific conditions. And is there any way that we can help those people get a job or something like that, or is there any hope for them at this point?
Well, if there is an accredited employer out there that can offer them a position, then yes, that is an opportunity available. But my worry is that there is no Samaritan out there to help them in that sense. And so what happens to them then? Immigration New Zealand is talking about giving them some kind of visa, which is to do with an exploitation visa. But I think that's not enough, because it was Immigration New Zealand's design of this process, of the way they process this application, that led people to go out there and do what they did. So Immigration New Zealand was in fact complicit in this. So if that is the involvement of Immigration New Zealand, then just giving them exploitation visa is not going to be enough. It'll require more. It'll require them to give them an open work visa where they can go and work for another employer, and recover what they've lost. Otherwise, it's going to be a really, really terrible situation for these people.
But again, does Immigration New Zealand have any say in recovering this money, because that transaction was made probably in another country?
I don't think
anything they can do about it.
No. There's going to be a jurisdiction issue.
Yes.
So no, I don't think they can, even if they wanted to, and even if they could, it would be difficult. That has been the difficulty with these migrant exploitation cases. But Immigration New Zealand has had a windfall. If you look at the number of applications that were made under the accredited employer and the amount of money paid to Immigration New Zealand, plus the job search applications, and the amount of money paid to Immigration New Zealand in that second stage, and then the accredited employer work visa and the amount of money paid to them in that phase, which is three different phases. We worked out the other day, based on the statistics that is available on Immigration New Zealand's website, it came to $1.3 billion.
Wow. Okay, that is a lot of money.
That's a lot of money to get in 1 year.
Yes. So basically, the system, you reckon they made a system where they can easily get a lot of funds quickly?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it was malicious. In fact, I think it was a response to the outcry after the COVID. Do you remember when COVID was happening, there was this outcry about students stuck, or those that were on a post-study visa, or those that were on a work visa stuck overseas.
Yes, and also there was like a shortage of staff is what I saw everywhere.
That's right. That was a big thing. There was an outcry by employers that they wanted staff. They wanted staff now, not in years to come, or months to come, or even weeks to come. They wanted everything to happen now. And so when the borders open in July, was it July or end of June? Anyway,
it was July.
It was July, yes.
I think.
When the borders open in July, I think the pressure was on Immigration New Zealand to come up with a system that could fill that gap, and fill that gap quickly. So to be fair to them, I think there was a lot of pressure on them to deliver, and they had to come up with a system that would deliver fast. So these were the compromises that were made. So I don't think the intention was malicious, that it was more to do with filling a gap. But it has had huge negative consequences. Consequences that I don't think people realize. It's wide-reaching consequences. Because what it's doing, I mean, if you think about it, if a person, and there will be many employers or recruiters that will get away. So there are many more out there that will never get caught, and nobody will know any better, unless they complain, of course. What that does to the economy, we have to think of that. What does that do to the economy? Yeah. What that does is that it allows a person to have an advantage, a business to have an advantage over somebody else who's running a similar kind of business. And it's also creating this mentality of corruption, creating this mentality of another way of, like an underworld way of working, which is not seen in New Zealand. Earlier, I think I was telling you that in the 80s, in schools, children were being served milk and were given an apple. that is the kind of country New Zealand was. There was honesty, there was generosity, there was education was very cheap, and they believed in world-class education system. Minister of Education at that time had a vision, world-class education system. But as years went by, and in '87, for example, the government were very generous to the Fiji Indians who were caught up in a coup situation. And David Longi at that time, who was the Prime Minister, allowed visa-free for these people to come in. And things like that. There was a great sense of welcoming. And university was not that expensive. The international fees were not what they are now. I'm an international student from that time. And it was virtually, they were paying us to go to university. It was just a wonderful, wonderful country with a wonderful experience we all had. And a lot of people would go back to their home country and they would then become ambassadors of New Zealand because they had wonderful things to say about New Zealand. Yes. Now that's a far cry to what it is now. So now it's all about money. It's about how much money can we make, how much income does this foreign student education brings in, and now we have gap of staff. So that's a huge issue. Labor shortage is a huge issue not only for New Zealand but around the world. So China and India are the two largest, population-wise, yes, countries, and they are the ones that are going to provide the labor force, whether we like it or not. They're the future of labor force. Yep. And even though, and now the other issue that comes into the mix is Australia has opened up to New Zealanders to virtually go there, live for a number of years, and then be entitled to citizenship. Now that will mean further shortage of staff, yes, in New Zealand. Now, if that is the case, then we will be bringing people from overseas. So we'll have to look very carefully at how we do it. And so New Zealand's reputation currently is at stake because of this kafafa. It's very sad in a way.
Do you think there's any long-term effects of this visa? Like, have they closed it down for now, or are they reevaluating it, or have they made any changes in immigration in New Zealand?
Yes, there's an inquiry currently being commissioned by the Minister of Immigration, and let's see how that transpires. But of course, I'm sure, and within Immigration New Zealand, there'll be a lot of people's head on the table. Needing to be accountable, because the ministers tend to get blamed for these things. I hear even in our chat there was this whole accusation about it's the government, it's their fault, they did it. But sometimes the officials and the two demarcations, they're separate. They are advised what's happening, but they don't actually know what's happening at the ground level. It took Immigration New Zealand staff anonymously to lodge a complaint about what was happening inside the organization for this to become quite apparent then what actually was happening. Because the policy doesn't show that that's happening. It's how they're processing it, which is completely different matter. So the blame, it's the other thing that I think that we probably need to also look at is, why are people buying jobs? That's maybe something you can answer. Well, in particular from
what I see from an Indian perspective is the amount of competition in India where people really struggle to get jobs. And I recently was talking to one of my co-workers who's Chinese, and he's saying 20% of their employees, like labor force, seems unemployed. So these kind of numbers, they make people desperate to get a job, and they'll try anything that they can by maybe selling their assets, trying to make up the money to pay one of these shady agents to go to another country to get another job. So it could be something like that. I don't know exactly what it is, but it seems like there's a mentality in these countries where people just want to leave and go to another country and start over again because they just can't make it in their own country. Unless they have like some really good connections or something, it's very difficult to make it.
So how do we break this cycle?
Oof, that is going to be a difficult way, I guess. It's just, I don't know. Like, I guess we need to spread the word that people should not pay for jobs in the first place. Like, okay, paying an like consultation fee or something, which is like a nominal amount, is fine. When I came here as a student and I initially talked to a consultant about it, and then I realized not to go with the consultant. But I did get some vital information from them, and I just made my own decisions and applied to university and came here and studied and all of that. Did everything on my own because like all the information's out there. You just need to be able to filter through everything and figure out the best option for you.
So do you think it's a trust issue? Because they don't know how to do it. Even though everything's available, they don't know how to do it. And so they trust somebody of their own.
Yes, I think it is one of those things because a lot of these people, they have their own agendas. Like what I saw from when I was looking for universities to study in is like all these agents, they wanted to divert me to a specific university, and I was like, I did not want to go there. That's not what I want. I want to try here first. So that's when I realized, okay, their agency fees, things like that, they do get paid agency fees. So all of that comes into the picture. So that is probably why they lean towards something.
But that's okay. I mean, being an agent and getting an agency fee, a recruitment fee from the university or the polytechnic or whatever institution they're working for is fine. But what we have here is not that.
No,
this is about the person who wants to study or wants to work is paying somebody for that work.
Yes.
Which is very strange, isn't it?
It is extremely strange. But I think it is commonplace in a lot of these countries by the looks of it, because it keeps happening, right? People are paying to go abroad and study somewhere or work somewhere else. And I think we just need to spread the word that be very careful when you're doing something like this, because more often than not it is a scam and you are going to get scammed.
So how would you spread the word?
Again, we just need to talk within our community. So what ends up happening is so when someone who's already abroad, they always, like someone who is, like in my example, if someone from India, they need advice on like working somewhere else, they would generally ask someone who's already there what the situation is and how easy it is. So maybe when someone speaks like that, you can always advise them on things like that. Like there are issues, you have to be very careful. If someone's offering you a job, you have to be very wary of what they're saying, and make sure you do like proper research before you accept anything or sign any document, basically. So it's just like talk to your community, talk to people back home. Anyone who you think is going to like try to move abroad, be very vigilant about where you put your money in, basically.
The employers are in New Zealand, and the recruiters are in India.
Yes.
And so the relationship between the recruiters and the employers in New Zealand, there needs to be conversation about that too. I'm sure of that. Yes. Because sometimes the employer doesn't know what the recruiter is doing. So education about that also. Yep. This particular cohort that we are talking about are from Punjab.
All right, yep.
I understand most of them are from Punjab. So it is the community, the Punjabi community in New Zealand needs to educate their own people back home about what's happening and what not to do and what to do. Yes. The community leaders, all kinds of community leaders.
Yes.
I don't know if you recall, there was a scam like this from Kerala, where they were transferring money, and a lot of people, the agents were doing it, and the candidates that were applying didn't have any idea what was happening in the background. And that was uncovered. Some of the students got... So a third party is doing it, but the victim, the person that falls, is the candidate or the applicant.
Yeah.
And that's the sad part, because sometimes they have no idea what they did. And most times they do. They're complicit in it.
Yeah.
But when they don't, that's really, really very sad, because then their visa gets declined and then they get subject for deportation because they've provided misleading information.
Exactly.
And therefore they're deemed to be a bad character.
And it's also bad for them because they will always struggle to get visas for any country
Exactly,
they want to even
exactly.
visit, travel.
That's right. International travel gets ruined. I mean,
Yes.
that's it. They get stuck. So huge implications, huge implications. Maybe not known, maybe not appreciated at the time of whatever's happening. So it's something that probably the community can help, and we request that people, if you know something like this is happening, yell out.
Yes, exactly. And talk to people if something like this is happening to you. We urge people to come forward and discuss with a community leader or someone like that.
That's right.
Or even just spread the word, basically. That helps. Spread the word back home. You have so much social media these days. Just tell people, okay, this is a common scam that's happening.
Yes.
Please share it to other people.
Yes.
So be careful.
And don't be fearful.
Yes, don't be fearful.
Don't be fearful.
Because help is always there.
Your help is there. And at the end of the day, in New Zealand is a good country, and people here are generally very good.
Yes.
And they want to be helpful. So don't be scared. If you have been brought in by somebody that is treating you like a slave, and you are listening to this podcast, then remember, there is always help. And you can always ring us, contact any one of us, and help will be there.
Thank you for that, Kamil.
Thank you, Daryll. It's been wonderful. Thank you for your contribution.
Thank you for listening to the Indian Newslink podcast.